What is up, down, and sideways, you absolutely fantastic individuals? Welcome to another episode of here with you beauties for the finale of Power Rankings. Way too early preseason Power Rankings, showing the LPL some love. We've been blessed. They decided to bring the region down to 16 teams instead of 17. We've got an even number, which of course works out for their 4 groups of 4 new format to kick off 2025.
An early holiday present from the LPL to even things out across the board. Now, things won't be even as we go through the rosters of the LPL. That is very clear when you're looking through a power rankings type of list like this, as you're trying to sort through where do things get serious. And, well, it's going to take a little bit of time in the LPL, and you can tell that by kind of this first chunk, first block, let's call it, down at the very bottom in the basement. Not a lot of hope for these teams to find a path or a motivation to success this year.
And I mean, honestly, truthfully, both of us, a lot of the names near the bottom, we're less familiar with in terms of what the resume is. But I think we've seen in the LPL, other regions as well, you're seeing this transition, and I absolutely love to see it. Younger players over washed up veterans, especially for these teams that are obviously going to be on a bit of a budget heading into this new year. And a lot of these bottom LPL teams, it's guys making their debuts. They've spent years in the LDL challenger scene, getting that promotion and just seeing what the potential is for them. And you and I, both much bigger fans of that than signing some free agent who was last good 3 years ago.
Yes, we're seeing more of that shift across the world, really, but especially seeing it kind of take hold and really being pushed forward in regions like the LCK and the LPL is that true sign that this is exactly the direction things are moving, where we are seeing more chances being given for young talent, trying to take that risk, that opportunity that they are going to turn into these star players, these common players that we all know and love and cheer for, as opposed to rolling it through with some of the more established names where you do have initially a fan base, but maybe we're not gaining any fans. We're not having any of these pathways where you have this young talent. And you're seeing that from both the LDL and LCK challenger scene making its way into the LPL starting roster.
And a lot of these rosters very different from what you were seeing in 2024. I mean, when you hand picking, I'm looking, one of the most hyped up young guys is on LGD. It's Climber in the Jungle. And the reason I want to highlight him is Meteor, we've been accustomed with being a perennial ELO held jungler in the LPL, but he's stepping into that coaching role alongside this young player in Climber. So that tandem, you feel like his growth is only going to be exponentially faster.
Yes, that is one of the early ones to keep a track of in this, bottom type of territory of the LPL. And, I like to call these the project that you're looking through the year and you're trying to keep track of. Again, there's going to be lots of things happening on the side, but if you can focus in on him as an individual player and see his growth alongside Meteor as a coach, I think that could be something for LGD. And again, that should paint a picture of what type of angles any of these teams can possibly hope for or look for when we're talking about being down in this dark basement of the LPL.
And of course, ahead of them, again, these are very difficult to rank, these bottom ones. OMG and FPX, those are organizations that we've talked about more in that playoff picture. OMG, we're long gone from that Cream Shanji era where they were kind of that dark horse. This is like a full new lineup. You've got Moham coming in as a support spot. And then FPX, remember, they had that surprise year last year with Milky Way and Life and Docdom in the bot lane. Again, it's only Care that's returning, but Care showed some growth, and he is kind of locked in that middle tier mid laner. And then this is the opportunity to see Sheer actually grow as the main starter on a team.
Firstly, on OMG, I think Moham stepping in as part of this change in the lineup is a bigger deal than some of the other ones because, of course, PP God was the guy, the starter before him, and someone very established within the LPL, has his supporters. So getting that type of change and shift to give him that opportunity is something to keep track of. And yes, Sheer getting his opportunity with Fun Plus Phoenix. This would feel incredibly shameful if he wasn't given a starting opportunity. Yes, I think one of the starting opportunities should be on a team that's maybe a little bit more fleshed out, is how we'll call it. But right now, he still has this opportunity with this FPX team, and an FPX team that you said has care still on this roster. One of these other guys that we are keeping track of from those OMG days on how he's able to progress as a player.
And again, it's like the expectations are so low for most of the teams, even squads like FPX and OMG, so low coming into this year that it wouldn't be difficult to kind of shatter those expectations, even to be close to vying for some of these playoff spots. And honestly, it's going to be so difficult to keep track of even what playoffs, how many teams are making playoffs, how do you qualify, because every region is different. So keeping track of all four of these major ones, it's going to be a headache, man.
More than any other region, the LPL feels like the reverse of the fortunes, where in any other region, you're doing the power rankings, you feel maybe extremely confident about that bottom because you know what the bottom is going to be. And then you figure out, okay, well, who's really going to be that top team? Which one of this, a handful is it going to be? The OPL feels pretty established in what is the top order, how you rolling through those tiers, and then you get to past that middle, and it's a who knows, empty grab bag, surprise bag of the rest of the LPL. Someone will rise. That's what I will tell you. Someone from this group will surprise, and there will be many disappointments and ugly games. That's just the way things work when you're hanging out in the LPL.
One of the trickiest ones to rank on this list. Maybe not tricky. Maybe we're just, being a bit blind. Because if you're watching Demacia Cup, RNG has no business being number 10. They looked pretty terrible in their first little round, even losing to LGD Young. But again, hard to take any meaningful information from the Demacia Cup. And listen, this RNG roster is so far from what we're accustomed to seeing out of RNG, although not the last couple of years. But still, you have a solid coaching staff with Hart at the helm, and this top side of Zhaoju, and especially Milky Way, is too good for this team to actually be a full bottom feeder. No, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but Milky Way is too good to not pick up some wins for them.
He's individually strong enough as a player when he's playing at his best, when he's in that zone and at a peak. He's enough to make it possible where the upset can happen for a team like RNG is what I'm going to book this on right away. In this early part, I'm going to try and wash away my eyes of all that I've seen in the Demacia Cup and the rest of the group and understand that, again, I'm doing that at the same time that I'm going to be taking a lot of stock and hype and excitement for a squad like IG from the Demacia Cup. So I understand. Bit of an unbalanced boat we're dealing with in this situation, but for RNG, I'm willing to give them that risk early in a way too early type of power rankings chance that eventually they figure themselves out. They won't bottom out to where the rest of this bottom and basement is in the LPL, but they're not going to find the heights and success and continued success that I think some of these elite teams in the LPL will be able to put forth this year.
And obviously, big question mark is that bot lane. They've got two guys that have spent basically 3 years in that LDL scene. So it's gonna take time for them to adapt and grow to that tier 1 region. But if you leave some runway open for them to get that development, they have an okay enough top side. I'm not about to call Milky Way a veteran presence after just coming off his rookie year, but there is talent on this roster. We alluded to the old OMG. Well, the old OMG is basically now ninjas in pajamas because, again, it's Shanji, Aki, PP God all on this roster. Leave comes in as the AD carry and then Nene as that mid laner. This now feels like the team that is maybe the playoff gatekeepers.
Yes, this is ninjas in pajamas. Welcome back to Fraud Watch or not. They're going to be in that playoff bubble type of territory that we're keeping track of. But again, the big thing for me with this team and what I want to see this year is that next step forward for the top and jungle. When you're talking about Shanji, you're looking at Aki as well. I think both of them, this is that next year, because last year was one of those opportunities that you could have taken that next step. But I think that you did show little bits of those signs here or there, weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden drop it in the third week type of thing. And that's where that inconsistency came through and why Broad Watch playoffs is all in that territory for NIP. Again, losing rookie, not going to be an easy thing for this team to be able to weather the storm of, I think, when we're looking at the rest of the LPL. But again, if players like Shanji and Aki can take that next step, I think that this is an NIP that holds their ground in the LPL.
And there's no reason they can't be in the conversation alongside the teams around them, like LNG, like EDG. These are very new look rosters, so obviously a lot of question marks. I mean, LNG has some returning members, Zika, Weiwei, both coming back, but new bot lane coming in, Haichao coming in to replace Scout in that mid lane. Obviously downgrades on paper from guys like Scout and Gala, but most players in the league are going to be downgrades from them.
Yeah, it's a very much a rock and a hard place type of position when you're LNG in that situation on how do you replace that and how do you find a way to keep that competitive level the same. You're not going to keep the competitive level the same when you're talking about players at Scout and Gala's level leaving. So that's one of the things to keep in mind and be open-minded with LNG. But for me, it is all about Zika in the top side. How much can he develop? What next steps can he take in his career? Because he's shown us glimpses of possibly being a monster, being a real threat and real disruptor in that top side, but it's never been consistent enough to really make that threat something that matters, and especially something that matters when you get into these best of series and the pressure really starts to add up. That's where I'm looking for Zika to make improvements and show strides this year.
And we're going to see how he can do kind of as more of that focal point of a roster, because without those two huge veterans in Scout and Gala, yeah, there's more on the plate for Zika to step up to. EDG, this is a team that has a lot of potential. It's kind of amalgamated some guys that have been standouts on weaker teams, especially that bot lane in Zoom and Wink, who have both... Wink's role swap, by the way, has been fantastic. Even when he was originally rumored on this IG roster, it was interesting. Obviously, Mako much better, but excited about this bot lane, and Zhao Hao as a jungler, another guy who stood out on some weaker teams. So we'll see. Again, the expectations this ranking is pretty high for EDG, but truthfully, that 7 to 12 range really is wide open in the LPL.
It shows that there's an absolute deepest and darkest part of the basement that we've talked about in the early parts, and now we're just starting to go up the stairs. We're not even at the main floor of the house quite yet for the LPL. That is that playoff territory, of course, but you got to get out of the basement here, and that's where all this positioning, all this jockeying on the stairs is where it is. And EDG is one of these ones where I think this is a fortunate ranking for them in this situation, given the uncertainty that we still have around them.
Last one on this board is Weibo Gaming, who actually made some of the fewest changes heading into this year. Just 2 members, obviously Breathe, Zhao, and Light, that core coming back. Losing Tarzan is extremely painful, but if you can replace him with Tian, all of a sudden, you're feeling pretty good about the offseason for Weibo.
This is where things get spicy in the LPL. You step into this territory with Weibo Gaming, the perennially disrespected and unexpected challenger in the LPL, the way that they are able to turn around the tables. Tian steps into this team as the real only change, and this is going to be one heck of a ride that we're going to be on, because again, Tarzan is an extremely skilled player, but you can look through his run on this Weibo team and find big gaps in that level of contribution, a level of performance, a level of skill that they were able to get from him as a player. Tian, you're getting a heck of a lot more consistency, and especially probably the most consistent guy domestically in the LPL over the last half decade, I would say, when you're looking at his performance and what he's been able to offer from that jungler position. But he's also one of the best counter engagers in the LPL. And when you're talking about a team like Weibo Gaming, there has been a lot of times where it's really been about the counter engage. It's all been about that initial engage, that all in that they've been about. So I want to see about where he factors in and how that, skill and preference and play style factors into how things change for Weibo.
And how different is regular season versus playoff? We've seen the level up for playoffs for Weibo, but Tian's kind of the inverse of that throughout a lot of his career. So something has got to give historically for this era of Weibo Gaming. You alluded to him. Tarzan has moved on to greener pastures in the LPL, and as the only 2 moves for anyone's legend, and if you remember, think this is too high, look at anyone's legend from last year, because they absolutely surprised as a huge dark horse run throughout the summer split, and that bot lane core plus Shanks is returning. Tarzan over Krako is a big upgrade, and I think people seeing Flandre from Ale is probably a downgrade. So kind of like a even Steven offseason for anyone's legend.
Almost even Stevens, because I want to give enough credit to your boy Tarzan and what is capable for Tarzan if he is giving anyone's legend the best version of Tarzan out on the Rift. Then it's a little bit different. Then I think it is still weighed in the favor of the improvements. Otherwise, things could be a little bit different. Now, when you're talking about a team like anyone's legend and the surprise success that they were able to have last year, I need to see those members contributing and taking another step as well, right? We're talking about what needs to change, what needs to be in this type of position for anyone's legend to solidify themselves into this top tier, top level of the LPL in that playoff zone is going to be those guys taking that next step. Looking at Shank specifically for me in the mid lane, I'd love to see him continue to develop, continue to hone himself, and get that experience to be one of the top mid laners in the LPL.
And, you know, Tarzan, I think being paired with him is a quick trajectory to get there. And I think Flandre, listen, as big a downgrade you're going to say, this guy is one of the most criminally disrespected players. I know we were calling for Sheer all last year on JDG, but as a weak side top laner, he's still one of the premier guys in the LPL. He's just not going to be your 1v9 carry performance. And the guy he's replacing found a new home. And you know what? Shout out to JDG for losing Ruler, losing Kanavi, having to do a full revamp. They've put together what should be yet another contending team. I've seen people say, yeah, but CV Max has never coached veterans. He only coaches young rookies. And it's got to be easier to coach veterans, right?
Oh, baby, the wonderful bundle that is JDG and what they've gone through this year. And yes, I think there is something to be said before all things start. Some recognition that, you know what, on paper, this roster looks pretty good for what you were able to do and what you have lost in that situation for JDG heading into this year.
The other angle for JDG that I've been seeing is people criminally disrespecting Pays. For some reason, you know, Ruler goes back to Gen G and all of a sudden Pays has never been a good laner. All these, I don't understand why people aren't recognizing that this guy was top 380 carry in the LCK.
It's criminal how bad he is getting a rap at this point and what type of, revisionist history reimagining of what his contribution, what his skills were with Gen G over the last year and a half, 2 years type of run is insane. The disrespect is unacceptable to me because this is a young player, an incredibly young player who has shown us things that no young player has been able to show us before, really, to take the level of success and achievements that he's been able to have and still have room for improvement. And that path is extremely exciting. And putting that with CV Max, someone we know who has been able to develop young players, it's not going to be the only thing he's challenged with at this new tenure with JDG. It's going to be a lot about the veteran players as well with this lineup. Scout in the mid lane is going to be one of the big things that you're looking at with JDG. Getting that addition, I think he is certainly going to be an improvement for the team. Even if you're looking at someone like Ale in that top side, that is going to be an improvement for me individually over Flandre. Now, is it an improvement over what you could have got with the extreme potential of someone like Sheer? I don't think so, but that's my personal choice there. But I think Ale will be a reasonably good fit for this team and what he can offer in that top side and how they want to play around him and things like that. I think that this JDG team, you add in a little sprinkling of Jun in the jungle from BLG, you've got the makings of one of the top teams in the LPL. Just how high can they climb is really going to be the question for me.
And I think 4 is like as positive as you can be about them. I think top 3 is locked in. You can argue top eSports and Invictus Gaming, who you want 2, who you want 3. It's really a matter of how much are you believing in the nostalgia of that super team that is IG. But for us, Kanavi coming over to play alongside his buddy 369 yet again and slotting him into this top esports lineup. Even if you're losing Mako for Crisp, that Kanavi, Jackie Love, Cream 369 4-man roster is too damn good not to be 2.
It's neck and neck. It is so close between these two, but I like that you acknowledge that, you know what, no matter as high as you want to throw JDG, pretty much 4 is about as high as you really can go before the season gets underway because of how solidified this top 3 feels in the LPL. And really that question then becomes, what do you like? What do you favor? Do you take the hype, the excitement, the return, rejuvenation of IG with this lineup with the Shy rookie in there as well? Again, Mako, as you mentioned, down in the bottom lane alongside Gala, feeling pretty hyped and excited about these opportunities for this team once again. Or is it about top esports, adding in Kanavi to this lethal lineup already? Continued development for Cream in the mid lane, 369 as the nightmare that he can be to deal with in the top side. And of course, Jackie Love, the engine that always drives the damage for this top esports team. Adding Kanavi to help facilitate things, help accelerate all these options is really a thrilling option for top esports.
And they, often were that main rival to BLG throughout all of last year, and will hope to be that same rival yet again as we finally get a second year on the same squad here. For Knight coming back, all these other rosters look nice, some big wins, A+s for off-season moves, but the A++ off-season award goes to BLG for retaining the same 5. I know they lost Jun, but it did feel like the playstyle of Wei actually fit this team better.
I think I really like that from BLG, really to take that step back, take that acknowledgement and examination of how things played out through the year and where your strengths and weaknesses were, what you can best work with and compatibility, all these things. And that decision was made for Weiwei. And that's where we find this BLG returning roster once again sitting atop the throne of the LPL, the throne that they have claimed 2 years in a row through hard fights and blood, sweat, and tears to get through it all at the top of the table. You'll love to see this BLG team here. We know the threats in Bin, Knight, even Elk down in the bottom lane and what they're able to do. For me, the big one is, you said it, Knight, another year, a returning year to the same team, something that I don't think we've ever seen happen really from him before. And getting this opportunity to keep building upon that, keep working with this group, I want to see how far they can take it. Because yes, we've seen individually that high skill that he has been able to put out on the Rift, but it's all about how can you now work that into strategy? How can you work that in with your teammates, what they need, what they don't need, what is powerful, what is strong, the strategy involvement. That's where I want to see BLG take the next step, and having Knight return to the team, that type of skill, absolutely. That is my expectation for the team.
Full steam ahead for BLG heading into 2025. But that's it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Beauties, thanks for hanging out. We will catch you on that flippity flip.